started asking Spirit, what could I speak to you all about today that would be something important? And I just kept getting Anita Morajani in my head. And I don't know if you're familiar with her. Many of you probably are. So I'm going to talk a little bit about her journey. I don't even know how many years ago I went to a spiritual expo in New York City. It was at the Jacob Javits Center. And I was so blessed to see people like Deepak Chopra in person and Wayne Dyer and all these amazing people. Doreen Virtue was there. It just went on, and John Holland, amazing medium. And so, but Anita Morajani came on stage, and I had no idea who she was. Beautiful Indian woman, just filled with light. You could just see it coming off of her in peace and her presence. And I had no idea what her story was. And so as she shared it, it just hit home in so many ways. And today I wanted to share it with you also. I really feel called to go over her story. She wrote a beautiful book called Dying to Be Me. And if you haven't read it, I really encourage you to read it. It is an amazing book. And if you're like me, get an audiobook, because I'm in the car, I'm jogging, I'm walking, and it's a great way to listen to somebody share her story. So about 2002, she was probably either in her 30s or early 40s. She was diagnosed with lymphoma, a very aggressive type of lymphoma. And I'm a nurse myself, and I actually study this type of lymphoma right now in pharmaceuticals and finding ways to really work with this disease, but it can be very aggressive. And she was frightened. She went through every type of chemo that you could, and then she went on into the naturopathic method. She went into vegetarian, then she went into all meat, and then she would read something else, and she was studying, working with Reiki masters and acupuncture and every type of modality that she could find to heal herself. And the cancer would go away, it would come back, it would go away, it would come back. And finally, in February 2016, it started to overtake her. And her husband brought her into the hospital as she was going into a coma. Sorry, I said 2006. But in the morning in February of 2006, she was going into a coma, and her husband, who loved her dearly, was working so hard to keep her alive. And the doctor looked at her and just knew that she was near the end of her life. And the tumors in her body, if you're familiar with your lymph system, it helps to protect you against infection, and it aligns with your blood circulatory system. You have these beautiful little beads all throughout your body of clumps of cells. When they're working well, they fight off infection and you don't even know it. When they have cancer, they start to proliferate and they get larger and larger until they start pressing on your organs, releasing toxins. And this is what had happened to her. From her base of her skull down to her abdomen, she was filled with these lymph nodes that had enlarged and even come out on her skin, creating wounds on her body. And she had lost so much weight. Her husband was just fighting and fighting against all hope to try to keep her alive. And as her body was filling with fluid, her brain, her lungs, she started to give way and feeling totally at peace. And of course, her husband had no idea what was going on, as the doctor is way down the hallway telling him she has very little time left. And all of a sudden, she started to feel at such peace. And her five senses gave way to something bigger and better and greater. Every ache and pain she had was suddenly gone. She started sensing merging with something that was so much greater than herself. And her emotional attachments to her body started to just give way. Even her emotional attachments to her family and her loved ones, it just started merging. Her love started merging with something that was calling her. And suddenly, she realized there was true magnificence around her. And she heard the doctor way down the hallway suddenly, but she could never have heard him in her bed, telling her husband that she had very little time left. And she's trying to call out, saying, "No, I'm fine. I'm doing really well. In fact, I'm better than well." And all of a sudden, She sensed her father around her who had died 10 years earlier, and her girlfriend, Sony, who had died 3 years earlier. And as she looked around them in there, she sensed their love. She also sensed all these other beings around her who she didn't know who they were, but she suddenly realized they'd been with her all her life. They'd walked with her journey, and all they could feel was total love for her. And as her heightened awareness became aware of this unconditional love, she realized suddenly why she had cancer. She always thought it was something she had done bad. Maybe it was karma. Maybe she hadn't lived her life the correct way. But she said, now I know. And suddenly she started to get a sense of true purpose in life. And she just started feeling this absolute love and realized as God came around her and in her, that God was not a being. But I love this. God was a state of being. And she was in that state of being, of pure unconditional love, total forgiveness. And as she felt it, she said, I've had to realize that everything I've done in my life, I do not have to work to be loved. I am loved no matter what. I am loved just because I am. Just because I exist, I am loved. And as she understood this, she said, where am I getting this from? Is this Buddha? Is this Krishna? Is this God? And as this state of being overtook her, she realized she was part of God. She was the greatest gift to herself, and God had given her that gift of herself. And then she started seeing herself as that thread. And we've often heard of this tapestry of life. I've read many things where people have gone to the other side. They've even had quantum healing hypnosis clients see this tapestry, where when they're on the other side in this other dimension, heaven, whatever you want to call it, they see themselves as a thread in a tapestry. And all the other threads around them are all the lives that they touched and impacted, and in negative and positive ways, creating colors and texture, creating love. And she saw in those threads her mother, her father, her sister and brother, people she hardly knew, but she had been touched by their lives. And then she realized that every action and every reaction that she had impacted their lives and her own. And she realized that she was a part of this overall picture of life. And she started to realize I owed it to myself and to everyone I met and to life to always be the most personal expression of herself that she could be and live herself authentically. And then, as she was trying to figure it out, she realized she was depriving herself all her life of who she truly was. She was always trying to meet the needs of others. And all these questions she started asking, why was I always so harsh to myself? Why was I always beating myself up or forsaking myself? Why did I never stand up for myself and show the world the true beauty of my soul? Was I always suppressing my own intelligence and creativity to please others? And I betrayed myself every time I said yes and meant no. Why did I seek the approval of others all the time? Just to be myself? Why wasn't I following my own beautiful heart's desire and speak my own truth? Why do we not realize that we are these perfect, beautiful beings when we're in these bodies? And so she asked these questions, and she said, how come I never knew we were supposed to not be so tough on ourselves? So as she started to feel this love still continue to permeate through her, she said, I don't need to do anything to deserve this love. Nothing. It's there. It's always, always there. And cancer wasn't a punishment. It was accumulation of everything she had done in her life to ignore who she was and not to bring forward her beautiful soul. It wasn't karma, it wasn't anything she had done. It was accumulation of all the decisions she had made. And at that moment, she realized she could be a part of any infinite possibility that she wanted. And at that point, she was a part of the accumulation of every decision, every choice, every thought in her entire life. And she had many fears, and she realized the power of the mind. That's why I love QHHT, because it teaches us if you are strong enough to make yourself sick, you are strong enough to make yourself well. And that is the power of your own mind. So next, she directed her awareness and looked at time and realized time is irrelevant. There really is no such thing as time. And that's something so interesting, which we often hear in our spiritual journey. But when she started to see she could make a choice to come back or to stay there, it didn't matter. If she chose to stay there, she just crossed over the energy levels to the other side, and she could leave all of the pain, the hurt, the anguish behind her, the cancer. And then she realized she could make a choice to go back, and her cancer would vanish, not in months, not in weeks, but in days. And doctors would not find a cell of cancer in her body. It was her choice. She could see the doctors writing the report that she had died of organ failure, or she could see herself coming back and living a life of authenticity and being who she truly was and the loving being that she was. So as she's looking at this, she kind of said, I don't know if I really want to come back. Mm-hmm. At the same time, she heard her father saying, this is as far as you can go, sweetheart. Can't come any further. If you come, there's no turning back. And when she saw this threshold and she saw the ability to make her life something even more than it had already been, she realized who she really was. She understood the magnificence of her true self. And if she chose to come back into her body, she would heal rapidly. She would also heal people around her. Maybe even someday somebody like Kim would be telling her story to other people, like that beautiful ripple effect that Mr. Rogers talked about. But she also saw that she could do this, and that she knew the only purpose in life, and I love this, as she said, is to be ourselves, to live our truth, and to be the love we truly are. She came through all these realizations, and she now knew that she had to live her life fearlessly, absolutely fearlessly. And when I thought about what does fearless mean, I started thinking about my life. I've had so many things in my background, but I also knew, and met my friends and people who come and had a session with me with QHHT, I've always told them the last third of my life is going to be even more important to me because I wanted to find a way to give back. And Spirit gave me a modality called QHHT. For you, it will be your own beautiful, perfect truth of what you are and what you follow. But I look at life to say, what brings you contentment? What brings you happiness? We all struggle for this happiness, and I will settle for contentment. I'll be happy to be content. And when I look at it, it's when you're giving of yourself and your gifts, and every single person has gifts. Even when you think you don't, at your lowest moment, you are a beautiful, shining beacon of light and love. You are in that state of being of God, and it is there, all in you and around you. I don't care if you're 2 or 102. Use your gifts. Follow what you think your purpose is. And if you don't know what your purpose is and you're not sure, just sit quietly. You don't have to meditate like a guru for 1,000 hours. You can sit in your car. You can take a walk. You can sit quietly and just hear that small voice that sounds like your own, but it's your higher self telling you if you just stop, question, and listen. So listen to that quiet voice in you, and you will find it. And if you can't hear it, sometimes my ears are a little clogged. Feel free to find someone who will do a QHHT session with you, so you get a moment of talking to your higher self, the you that is really you, the you that is your authentic you. It knows all your lives, all your past, all your future. It's there and it can give you great advice. But either way, sit with yourself. Sit with the love that's in you. And take that love and give it to others small ways every day. Be calling a friend, it can be giving a hug. It can be doing something small, like calling somebody knowing they're alone. It can be tiny, but it will touch their heart. This week, I received flowers from somebody. I almost fell through the floor. She sent them to me, and I was just thinking, like, I'm not a gift person. I don't have to have gifts to be feeling love. But I really realized it came from her heart. And more than anything, that was what touched me deeply. So give from your heart, even if it is something sweet. Will come from you and be the authentic you are. Thank you. Beautiful day, everybody.